Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Hope everyone's here for the Tuesday, February 14th community meeting. That's what I'm here for. If you're not here for that, stick around anyways. You might actually encounter something interesting. Otherwise, welcome back regulars and welcome back welcome newcomers. My name is Nate Boot. I'm a developer advocate for the OpenSearch project, and this is our community meeting. We've enacted a couple of security measures and request that you follow some etiquette. Please introduce yourself before speaking. Mute yourself unless you're actively speaking. Cameras are, of course, optional. And questions can be asked anytime in the chat or over audio. Although if we do have a presenter who has another preference, make it known and we will accommodate as best we can. And of course, if you're disruptive, you will be removed violently. Just kidding. We've taken some additional measures. Annotations are turned off. Your profiles will only show names. Only hosts and co-hosts can share their screen, and additional co-hosts should be here to help remove disruptors. And you have to type in a passcode. And you can't change your name in the middle of the conference to make it look like Chris or I are talking. And that's it. Same ones that have been there forever. Again, thanks for coming. Announcements. The slide is blank today, but that is actually false because we do have a release. What did we release, Chris? Something cool came out.
We released 1.3.8.
That's what I thought. So we have that to play with. If everyone's using a 1.x line, pull it and play with it and see what it can do for you.
And of course, our latest release is 2.5.0. Latest major release,
which is also awesome. Okay, so our agenda for today actually changed a little bit. I think our first presenter was unable to attend today. So today we have Julien. How do we pronounce your last name, Julien? Nioche?
Yeah, Nioche. Nioche. Hi, everyone.
He's founder of Digital Pebble, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit about his StormCrawler project that uses Apache Storm and Maven, and is a really high-powered web crawler, and you'll get all the cool details from him about that. If no one has any other announcements for the good of the order, I say we hand it over to him.
So yes, good morning, everyone. So these are just a few slides, just an introduction to StormCrawler and how you can use it with OpenSearch. So thanks, Nathan, for the introduction. So yeah, my name is Julien Nioche. I run Digital Pebble. I've been doing that for some 14 years now. And yeah, StormCrawler is one of my babies. I was really tempted because it's Valentine's Day and everything to have your heart and your Cupid on the first slide, but I'm really glad I opted not to. So a few words about StormCrawler. So it's something I started in 2014. So for some reason, I keep thinking it's 10 years, but no, not quite. The project is, yes, it's quite mature. It's been going for a while. It is open source under Apache license, and it is, yeah, the aim of StormCrawler is to help people build distributed and scalable web crawlers. So I've been involved in mentioning, open source. So I've been in open source for quite a while, and in fact that what constitutes I'd say the identity of Digital Pebble as a consultancy. So I've been involved in various projects at the Apache Software Foundation, so things like Tika or and so on. One of the projects I've been the most involved in is Apache Nioche. So Apache Nioche is again another distributed web crawler based on well, not just based on Apache Hadoop. It gave birth to Hadoop, which is even more impressive. So I worked on it for many years, for quite a few clients over the years, and it became apparent after after a while that I thought we could do things better, or at least differently. So the bit about StormCrawler being distributed or scalable, that's thanks to another project called Apache Storm. I'll touch on that in a minute. But just to go back to what I was trying to achieve with StormCrawler, was there something which is also robust, that you can use it here, something battle tested, that you can use on a large scale, and that will not crash every 5 minutes, but that you can run reliably. Something also, I was aiming to do something efficient from a crawling point of view, so that you can optimize your bandwidth and get as many pages as possible. But of course, the balance is also to get something which is polite. It's super easy to write a dirty crawler that will just hammer the site it targets without quite disrespectfully, and inevitably you'll get blocked by doing that. But StormCrawler by default kind of guides you towards politeness and towards being open about what you do, and being open about your user agent and how the crawler sort of advertises itself to the wide world and everything. One thing that is doable with StormCrawler, and which wasn't really possible with something like Apache Nioche, is to do low latency, and that's thanks to the nature of Storm compared to Hadoop, which is batch. Hadoop is batch driven, and Storm is stream driven. So you can do things. You can sort of do more use cases, including use cases where the latency has to be low between please fetch this URL and the moment where you actually fetch it and process it. Now, another thing I wanted to focus on with the project was to something modular, so something where you could add, have a core and also extensions and optional modules, so that you don't necessarily have to have like a massive code base to look after, but just get the bits you need and compose them. And in a similar sense, have something lightweight, so that you can, with just a few configuration files, a minimum of stuff using dependencies, you can have something fully functioning, fully working, but without having to look after an awful lot of code. And similarly, something extensible. A lot of the people who use StormCrawler rely on the basic components, but also write their own components, and it blends very nicely. You can add your own bits, specific to what you want to do with a crawl. For instance, quite a few companies use StormCrawler to fetch, say, images from the web or videos, and they will need to do some specific types of processing to the images or the videos, and for that they'll be able to write their own code and blend it very nicely with the core components of StormCrawler. If you look on the link on the powered by, you will see there is a list of users. It's not exhaustive, partly because it's the beauty of open source is that you don't necessarily see everyone who uses it, and sometimes some of the users don't want to be listed. The organizations don't want to be listed for all sorts of reasons, which from an open source point of view is a shame, but that's how it is. But feel free to have a look at this URL just to see who uses it. As I mentioned, so one of the the drivers behind StormCrawler is Apache Storm. Absolutely, an absolutely fantastic project, which has been around now for a good few years. And what Apache Storm does for us is it gives us a platform to distribute the computation of not just one machine, but a cluster of machines. It does that reliably by respinning. If something fails, it will restart it. It will give you a UI, as we'll see in a second. It gives you all sorts of things that you can take for granted, and you can build your application on top of it. As I said, Storm is stream-based, so you think about your data as a stream of data going through what's called in Storm parlance a topology. So you design your application with Storm, and that's what it looks like in the UI with StormCrawler. So what you see here is the screenshot of me running a crawl topology like a vanilla one, a while ago, and you can see the various components in here in the list is listed here. So a bolt in Storm is just something that operates on the stream of data, and a spout is something that emits data for the topology to operate on. And here what you could see here is just the basic things that a web crawler does. So a web crawler obviously fetches the pages. So you have a fetcher bolt here. It parses them. It extracts the text and metadata from the pages, and so on and so on. And of course, from an OpenSearch perspective, the bits that are relevant is the indexing. So whenever a document is fetched and parsed, then the text and the metadata are turned into fields and indexed into OpenSearch. It's not the only, as we'll see in a minute, it's not the only way we use OpenSearch with StormCrawler. Going back to StormCrawler in general, it is quite, because it's mature, it has quite a few features that the community have contributed to the project. So it's pretty good at extracting data from pages. Obviously, it doesn't do just HTML. It does all sorts of formats thanks to Apache Tika. So stuff like PDF, Word, Excel, and so on. You can define obviously your own extraction rules. So if there are specific things you want to extract from web pages, you can define rules based on XPath or other types of filters, just to later on put that into fields to query with OpenSearch. You can also control, an important aspect is that you're able to control the expansion of the crawl. So you can define rules for filtering the URLs and tell the crawl, where to go and where not to go. Out of the box, it also deals with things like sitemaps, where websites can give you like the list of all the URLs they want to be exposed, and you get that out of the box with StormCrawler. Same obviously with the robots.txt directives, where a website will tell you where not to go. So the StormCrawler by default will follow and obey the rules in robots.txt. And so on. There are loads more in the various modules of StormCrawler. So now more specifically about OpenSearch. So I wrote a module for OpenSearch in the last release of StormCrawler, which is based, as OpenSearch itself, is based on a module we had for Elasticsearch. So I ported this to the code to work with OpenSearch. And what that does is basically three things. As I mentioned before, often people crawl web pages or web documents in order to index them with OpenSearch. So functionality number one is being able to index the content of the pages you crawl, which is, when you build a search engine, that's typically what you do. And from an OpenSearch perspective, that's what we refer to as the content index. The second use of OpenSearch is, I think, quite interesting, is that we store, the crawler can store the data about the crawl itself in OpenSearch. That's the status index. So, and I'll show you in a moment, all the URLs when we discover them, when we add metadata to them, when we schedule them, all this is stored in an OpenSearch index. And one of I mentioned the spouts earlier in Apache Storm, so the components that will generate tuples to go down the topology. I mean, there are several spout implementations, and what they do is basically they query the status index and say, hey, give us URLs that need fetching, and we'll deal with them. Finally, the last use of OpenSearch with StormCrawler is to index metrics. So Storm has quite an elegant way of handling metrics. and these get sent to OpenSearch, and then we can monitor the crawl and see, for instance, how many pages per second the crawler has been doing, and so on and so on. That's the metrics index. So concretely, how do you use that stuff? So assuming you have Storm installed, and you don't need to have a cluster. A lot of people use it on clusters of with loads of machines, loads of servers and everything, because they want to do on a big scale. But it works absolutely fine from your laptop as well. In fact, most people use it on a single server. But whichever way you do, you still need to install Apache Storm. You can run it with Docker. It's a bit fiddly, but it's doable. And from there is a so I'm not sure I mentioned, but StormCrawler is implemented in Java, and there is a Maven archetype for StormCrawler and OpenSearch, so that you can, with just one line on the command line, you can generate all the resources that you can use as a starting point to build a crawl topology with OpenSearch. And it's fully functional. All you need to do is give it then starting points, seed URLs, and then off you go. You can run a crawl. As part of that, you also get dashboards to use as starting points, to see what you find in the status index or the metrics index. And what I'm planning to add in the short medium term is more online tutorials and presentations to guide people on how to use StormCrawler and OpenSearch. There are already things using other backends. There are tutorials and presentations on how to use it with Elasticsearch. So the two projects being so similar, of course, you can totally apply those tutorials to your use with OpenSearch. I mentioned the Maven archetype, so what it gives you is something that looks like that. So this is your starting point. You have a couple of configuration files. So these are the YAML files. A flux file. So the flux file is what defines the topology. So where you define all your boards or your components, and it comes sort of preset. It's a decent starting point. And there's of course a README that will guide you through step by step on how to run it. So you can very easily have something up and running. And the beauty of it is that if you look at the number of files, the source directory, sorry, contains a few resources, but overall it's just a few files, and you get something that you'll be able to run on a massive scale if you wanted to. And that's all there is to it, because all the complexity and all the sort of the pipe works provided by Storm itself, and then all the vanilla components come out of the StormCrawler core dependencies. So it is quite neat and tidy, I think. So a quick word about the dashboards. They are currently, they are fairly minimal. You can of course extend them to your heart's content. They are far more metrics stored in the index than shown in the dashboard by default. But this is just to give you an introduction to what it does. So it gives you, for instance, on this crawl, which was from a while ago, a number of pages per minute, number of bytes fetched, and then some internal metrics that are useful once you understand a little bit how StormCrawler operates, and that allows you to monitor the crawl and spot problems. Of course, this has to be used in conjunction with and combined with the Storm UI, where there you'll be able to get a lot more information about and access the logs for the different components and see various stats as well. So typically you run a crawl and then you use your dashboards to have a view like that, and the Storm UI to monitor things. It's a pretty efficient combination. You can also, instead of the dashboards, or as well as there are also resources for Grafana, and a number of I think a template for Grafana that allows you use the metrics index either in OpenSearch or Elasticsearch, and it works absolutely fine. The Grafana dashboard's been used probably a little bit more, so there are more things there. Again, something that is worth looking at if you're interested. The other dashboard is fairly simple. It's just an overview of the top domains that the crawler has URLs for, and the status of those URLs. So in StormCrawler, URL can be either discovered, so it hasn't been visited yet, but you know it's there. And then fetched means obviously that you've dealt with it, and so on and so on. So again, that's just a very sort of something to give you at a glance, just an overview of where the crawler is in terms of numbers. Of course, the beauty of running OpenSearch and StormCrawler together is that then with the data about the crawler itself being in OpenSearch, you can then go and explore and see what's there, what you've crawled and so on. And this is, I mean, compared to something like Apache Nioche, where to get stats, you need to run a batch job that will take, I don't know, 20 minutes. And if it doesn't crash, then you'll get some stats and everything. The combination of StormCrawler and OpenSearch, you can do that in real time. And also you can filter things and facet things to your heart's content. And it's a very nice way of opening the data, from the crawl itself. Often you run a crawl, you monitor it using the dashboard or using the Grafana one. You find an issue with a specific site or something, then you can go and have a look at the data and say, oh, why did this URL fail? What is its status? What information do you have about it, and so on and so on. So you make things really open, and that's a fantastic fantastic tool to have. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to cover in the introduction. Just two links here, the links to StormCrawler itself, and also my company Digital Pebble. If you have any questions or anything, or you want to give it a try, the GitHub repo has a discussion section, and it's a good way of reaching out to the StormCrawler community. Yeah, and that's it. Very happy to take questions if you have any.
Well, thanks for that, Julien. Excuse me. I'm actually let's let the guests ask questions first. Did I see a hand raised? So there's one in the chat about deduplicating records. Do you have a particular deduplication process?
So it's so I suppose assuming the question here is about deduplicating URLs. Or is it about the content of the URLs or about the URLs themselves?
So how do you make sure you don't scan the same URL twice at scale? What do you use to store do you use OpenSearch to check for the existing records? How do you make sure you don't process twice?
Yeah, so as I was showing in the status index just now, that's where we store the information about the URLs. So each URL in a way, and the information and the metadata related to it are just a document in OpenSearch, and the ID of the document for the document is based on the hash. Well, it's configurable, but by default it's a hash of the URL. So there'll be only one instance of the URL in the OpenSearch index, and that's how you deduplicate the URLs. You do that in OpenSearch.
Is there a chance for a race condition when you use OpenSearch for this?
No, not to my knowledge. No, partly because of the way Storm deals with the tuples, and also because you create a document for URL only if it doesn't really exist. I can't remember the term for that in the API, but yeah, you will not create two URLs.
I see. So you have to use you have in advance to define the document ID, so to prevent a collision.
Yeah, the document ID is is taken from the is a hash of the URL.
Got it. Got it. Cool. Thank you.
I think there was another question from Fernando. What are the strategies for dealing with missing web pages? For example, if a site was crawled but it's no longer available. So in that case, if a site was crawled and it's not available anymore, what would happen by default is that when the crawler sort of reschedules for the pages to be revisited, and when it revisits the pages, it will find that it doesn't need to do anything. It gets a fetch error, and after a configurable number of fetch errors, it will turn it into a proper full error for that particular URL. And in the configuration, you can determine how to deal with those, whether you want to revisit them at all, or whether that's it, not going to be seen ever again. So it is configurable to a large extent. It is by default seen on URL per URL basis. So it doesn't really deal with, doesn't really have a concept of crawling a site as such. All it knows about URLs. So it will retry the URLs for a configurable number of times. I just remembered something I forgot to mention is that there will be so technically the tricky bit about, and I think the interesting bit with the use of StormCrawler and OpenSearch is the status index and how the strategies we use for getting the URLs to be fetched from the status index. There are several implementations. Fundamentally, they use aggregations to find to group the URLs into queues based on their host name or domain name or IP address. Again, that's totally configurable. And so what the aggregation does is that it will group the URLs, because you don't want to get like 600 URLs from one source and nothing else. What you really want is to have a good diversity of URLs at all times to optimize your bandwidth, and so that you hit as many targets as possible, and while being polite to each and every target. And so that is done internally as an aggregation, but then aggregation, as you know, can be quite costly, because you go through the entire, the only constraint you have is you want URLs that are due for fetching. So they have like a scheduling date, and that's the only one of the few constraints you have. So you go, as the status index goes, gets bigger and bigger, you have more and more URLs that will go into those aggregations. So the trick is that you don't want to do the aggregations too often. And that's where we have like a hybrid approach, where we do an aggregation every so often to get like our bucket names, if you want, to know which sites we will consider in the next 5-10 minutes. And then what we do is, instead of doing those heavy aggregations all the time, then we do very simple term queries, where whenever we've run out of URLs for a particular queue, we ask OpenSearch for a number of URLs just for that queue, just for that host name. So we combine those two methods, and it works fine. It's relatively scalable. As I said, people use StormCrawler on a massive scale. Some companies have used it to crawl billions of URLs and have. So at least, they've done that with Elasticsearch. I'm not aware yet of many people who are using StormCrawler and OpenSearch in production, but that's because it's all very new. But what I was about to say is that there will be, one of the things that I'll be working on in the short to medium term is to play a bit and try new ways of storing the information about the hosts, and probably trying to go around the having to use aggregations. And so there'll be some work on that. And I think the OpenSearch module in StormCrawler would be an interesting place for innovation, if we can put it like this. Let me see if there are any more questions on the chat. Yeah, Fernando is asking, regarding the extra processing applied to each web page, does this logic have to be implemented in Storm to take advantage of the OpenSearch module? So I assume extra processing is things like parsing and could be, I don't know, things like applying machine learning to classify a web page or that sort of stuff. Yeah, so it's yes, you would define, you would write your custom, well, either reuse and configure the vanilla components in StormCrawler to do that, in which case it's mostly through configuration files, and there's no code to write. Or what people tend to do is they write their own modules for StormCrawler. So they will write a bespoke bolt implementation that will do exactly the logic they want. This would have a dependency on the core module of StormCrawler. And then in their topology, they will just use that module alongside the OpenSearch module. But things are pluggable. That's the beauty of it, is that you can reuse existing things and mix them with new ones and take third-party ones. It's meant to be like Lego.
That was actually going to be my my question, is that it looks like through the parsers and the bolts, I'm particularly interested in the bolts functionality, where once you've fetched a page, there's processing that you need to do on the contents of it. And so I'm thinking that would be a great place to implement some kind of custom processing, like doing an SEO check to make sure you're putting metadata in your pages, or any kind of arbitrarily creative check that you need to do can just be bolted on any way you like. And it looks like there's just a certain Java interface you have to implement to make sure it works.
That's right. Yes.
That's excellent.
Yeah, you could do that. You could so for instance, the parser bolt in StormCrawler itself has a pluggable mechanism where you can write something called parse filters, and those parse filters will access the like the text and the metadata already extracted by, say, JSOUP. And then you can add your logic to that. So all you'd have to do is implement a class that extends the parse filter interface in StormCrawler. So you can, and then that would run within the parser bolt. You would technically not even write a bolt. You would write a component that would run within an existing bolt. But then some people also, when their logic is doesn't quite fit within the paradigm of a parse filter, say, or something like that, then yeah, you could of course write a custom bolt. I know quite a few companies who've done that, and in a way, Storm then has a nice the way you define the interfaces and the messaging between the bolts is very, very nice, very tidy, and it's remarkably easy to do. So yeah, StormCrawler is quite, I think, nice and extensible like that. You can write your own bits very easily.
That's wonderful. Well, I sure think it's a cool project. I'm glad to have you here to share it. Are there any more questions for Julien? Or are there any more questions about anything OpenSearch related? Is anyone going to any conferences, looking for co-presenters, anything like that?
Anyone else heading over to FOSS Backstage next month? Nope.
No one's going to FOSS Backstage? Interesting.
I'll be there. So if anyone does, let me know.
I think we are going to have a presence at KubeCon. What was the other one? Open Source Summit North America. That's in Vancouver, Canada. And gosh, what was the other one coming up? I wish Tippett was here. David Tippett, are you in the call?
No, but I am. This
okay.
is Nat. Yeah,
Hey, Nat.
I manage events for OpenSearch. Yeah, so we will be at DevRel Yokohama. David Tippett will be there specifically. That is in Japan, so I know that's kind of a heavy lift for the US folks to get there, but we'll be there. Like Nate said, we'll be at the Linux Security Summit in Vancouver, and we will be at KubeCon and Cloud Native Con in Europe this upcoming April. There's also a co-located observability day happening to that, and we will be there as well. And then after that, we are planning to be at Haystack. We've had some people express interest in going. We're not sponsoring or anything. And we have PyCon US happening in April as well.
And Joel, that's a good question. Is there a list of these conferences? That's something we're working on the website. You can go to opensearch.org/events to see current meetings that are coming up, typically where we're going to be presenting, although I have some work to do to add those pages. But
yeah, echoing Chris, this is something that we have been building internally, and we're just getting to the point where we're working to get it to face externally so that we can have a list of where we'll be sponsoring, and where we'll just have a presence or attending, or just, you know, to help get more visibility across the conference scene for the OpenSearch community. I'm going to drop my email in the chat. If you want to if you have specific questions about conferences or are looking for some upcoming conferences, go ahead and send me an email and I can help get you guys whatever information you need.
A corollary to that is that we're always, if someone has a great presentation and they need a representative from OpenSearch, we're always looking to co-present with people, or if you need help coming up with material or anything like that, I'm going to drop my email as well, just in case. But yes, we do like to do things in the open, and if there's some help, if you have a good presentation that got accepted or even not accepted and you need help, we are at your service.
And Elena, I see that you're going to be at Devoxx UK. You can always submit that and have it listed on the opensearch.org site as well. I can reach out to you and assist, or you can put in a PR on GitHub and we'll get you listed out there.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, I have no further subjects for the good of the order. Nat, thanks for chiming in. I was actually out of material there for our conferences, so I'm glad you're here to keep track of that kind of thing. Much appreciated.
Yep, happy to do it.
Nothing else for the good of the order, huh? Has anyone posted anything to the forums that has not received a response? Anything lately? Can we circle the wagons on a forum posting or anything like that?
Yeah, Terry from SAS. We had asked about FIPS compliance and the security product. I know it's kind of a niche area to ask here, and there's also like a security triage meeting. But we had asked another question, and it was like a year-old post. And I think there's an ongoing discussion for our feature request to emulate the Elasticsearch FIPS mode. So we asked a question about that. I know it's quite specific for this, but then there are also like AWS endpoints that tell us they are FIPS compliant. So two things really. It'd be good to know the chances of progress on the code changes and whether we can contribute. And then on the other end, if we can tell customers that they can use the AWS endpoints, what is it exactly that makes those FIPS compliant while
Gotcha.
the underlying code base doesn't have a FIPS mode yet?
I don't think I know the answer to that. I know.
Would it help?
I can tell you this.
URLs into the.
Yeah, and when we have a security backlog meeting that takes place in public on Mondays, is that right, Chris? Did you say that you've been to that one and addressed the team?
I know it exists, but I haven't been to it yet.
Yeah, here's what I would suggest that you do. the beginning to any feature in OpenSearch starts with an issue in GitHub. And so if there's some feature you want, I would file that issue and be as descriptive as you can. But then here's what always happens. And it might be a bit of a generalization, but you file the issue, someone's going to come in looking for issues, and they're going to see that and go, hey, that looks like a good idea. And they're going to star it or +1 it. And so the issue that you lay down there is going to set the groundwork. And of course, you are absolutely welcome to contribute.
Yeah,
we
because
encourage
I've
it.
started and I wasn't sure how much that actually helped the progress along. But do you think you should also comment and see how much we're interested in it and like to progress it?
Absolutely. Because that's someone invariably has the same use case that you do. I've witnessed it too many times in person to just dismiss it as coincidence as to the way things work. So I very much suggest that you both file that issue and then join up and push on the people doing the backlog on those issues. It is technically a security issue. Yeah. So I think we could get some attention on that pretty quick.
Yeah, that's great, Nate. No, thanks for the direction.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi guys, this is Ani here. Just a quick note on the FIPS thing. I know like a couple of people in this room itself have a request for the same feature. So if you drop the issue, and it'll definitely get more traction and we can move ahead.
Sounds great, thanks.
Hey Nate, there was a question in the chat that got lost. This is Patty. To Christine's point, our community meetings alternate times every other meeting. So biweekly, one will be at 8 a.m. The next one will be at 3 p.m. Pacific.
Yeah. Oh, it's like, Chris just jumped on that one too. Well, this whole tree chat and the reactions in the new Zoom, that's pretty slick. I really like it. Okay. We have no further subjects to discuss. Feel free to stick around, and I'm just going to hang out for another 10 minutes. If anyone thinks of any questions, feel free to drop them here, and we'll have an open office 10 minutes. Julien, thank you very much for coming to present. I'm a little enamored with your StormCrawler, so I'm going to be playing with that. Thanks for coming and sharing your smiling face on camera, and hoping to have you back. If that's something we are having an OpenSearch con, that might be a pretty neat demonstration to have. If you have an abstract on that to submit.
Yeah, I'll definitely consider that. Well, thank you very much for having me, and great to take part today. Thank you.
Let's see. Is there anything I'm missing? What am I missing? Am I missing anything, anyone? I don't have the heart to do a dad joke today because I didn't have time to find a good one.
I sent you a list.
I know. They were the first ones I saw too when I started searching for dad jokes. And I thought, Nate, if you have to do a Google search for dad jokes before your community meeting, you're probably trying a little too hard. So I'm trying to let the dad jokes come naturally.
We appreciate him.
Yeah. Coercing dad jokes out of me is a sure way to get bad dad jokes.
Dad jokes and Nateisms.
We do love
we love your jokes. We love them, Nate.
Yes.
Excellent. I will keep them coming. It keeps me in character,
Nate, since you mentioned OpenSearch Con, do you already have a plans, dates for it?
Yep, we have some plans coming. We are planning to have the website up and launched in the next few weeks here. We'll make sure and cover all the details in this meeting once we have the website live. But yes, we will have details for you guys and a website and everything very, very, very soon. And we'll make sure and take some time in an upcoming community meeting to talk through conference specifics, the tracks, the CFP, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, good question, Andre.
Well,
yeah, please do let us know when you have extra details, and we will absolutely make time for you on our meeting here, Nat.
It's a high priority for all of us, and we're excited for everyone on this call to attend.
You'll be hearing from me as well. This is Patty via email. So.
All right. Well, I hate to keep everyone here, but I guess I am done, and that we can give you a couple minutes back. Oh yes, and happy Valentine's Day.